Good afternoon, everybody. Rainy Vienna, really glad I came here all the way from Britain. So that's have enough to. You can ich höre mich aber Mikrofon. Yeah. This one should be on. Okay. Good. Then welcome in rainy Vienna. I'm glad I made all the way here to Germany. I'll try to be your MC this afternoon with a bit of German humor, some good thing that is clearly lacking in Vienna, at least every time I'm here. And I'm glad to start with Vid. He's new business development and strategist at the blockchain hub of Raiffeisen Bank International. Last time I think we had a call, we still had Corona, and we were talking about tokenizing tractors. So I'm really looking forward to get an update from you about what Raiffeisen Bank is strategizing about stablecoins. Vid, the stage is yours. Nice applause for Vid, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Vid. As Sebastian said, I'm in the blockchain hub of RBI. We have a small unit in our bank where we have been exploring blockchain applications for a couple of years, focusing currently on crypto offering, tokenization of assets, and one important pillar here are also stablecoins. Today I'll give you a brief overview of how we look at stablecoins, what we see as the most important trends, and then at the end also kind of give you an overview of how the banks are generally thinking about the options of stablecoins. So first trend that you can see on the slide is definitely, at least for us, regulation. So in Europe we have now MiCA that deals with the issuance, that provides a clear regulatory framework, which is super important for us as banks to have regulatory clarity. And we have seen some more licensed stablecoins starting to appear. So currently we have 14 licensed stablecoins for e-money issuers, issuing more than 20 e-money tokens. 12 of them euro-denominated, 7 of them US dollar-denominated, and there is actually also a new Czech Koruna stablecoin that appeared a couple of months ago. Most of them are still fintech issued, so banks have not properly entered this area yet. However, we have seen Société Générale a couple of years ago already issued their own stablecoins, so USD, through their subsidiary Forge, and Banking Circle issued their stablecoin. But there are also some rumors that other banks are working on projects such as, for example, UBA with the Visa platform, and there were some rumors also around that. On the global scale, what is also important is that the regulation is coming also in other countries, such as Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, UAE, and the most important example, the US. So they have recently passed the Genius Act, which provides, let's say, a similar regulatory framework as MiCA. But what is different there is that they also have the policy support. So they have the government support that is actively pushing digital assets, including stablecoins. So they want to be the global leader when it comes to digital assets, and that's why they're also looking at stablecoins and trying to promote it. Another reason for that is, you can see it here on the right-hand side, is that basically when Tether and Circle, also the other stablecoin issuers, are issuing US dollar stablecoins, they are providing these stablecoins also to people in Africa, Latin, around the globe. And these stablecoin issuers are, let's say, parking their reserves also in high-quality assets or in US treasuries. And basically, here you can see on the right-hand side, Tether and Circle are one of the biggest holders of US treasuries, which is actually indirectly also refinancing the US debt. So this also explains why they are giving so much or putting so much pressure on the policy sector. Here, the next thing, what we kind of see when we're observing the trends is that the ecosystem is developing. So here I split the ecosystem into 5 different layers, from customers, applications, middleware, stablecoin issuers, and blockchain. And I'll just shortly explain the trends that you see. On the customer side, especially we see adoption in emerging markets, where there's a lot of inflation, where people cannot have, let's say, a US dollar account. It's hard to get it, or it's expensive to get it. And that's why stablecoins are an easy way how these people can hold US dollars, so foreign currency that's not that volatile, instead of holding their own currency, which is subject to inflation. A lot of developments also on the remittance space. So people have found out that, especially in these corridors in Latin, Mexico, the costs of sending money abroad are really high. And there we also see a lot of adoption. On the corporate adoption, let's say this is still maturing slowly, so especially when it comes to more global businesses, digital first businesses, they are starting to adopt stablecoins. So for example, SpaceX, Amazon, Walmart are also thinking about issuing their own stablecoin, but there is also a slow trend that we're starting to see that the corporate adoption is also coming. An even more important trend is on the application layer. Here we see a lot of adoption by payment service providers. So basically all this PayPal, Stripe, MoneyGram, all these companies are definitely having their stablecoin strategy, are using stablecoins for different use cases, stablecoin payouts, merchant settlements, merchant accounts. So for example, what Stripe is offering is, on one side, the merchant acceptance, so merchants can accept cryptocurrencies and stablecoins, and then what they see in their Stripe platform is their, let's say, balance in stablecoins that they can also transfer to other suppliers, and again, these transactions are made in stablecoins. Middleware is an important one for us as a bank because we are using these core banking and core payment systems, and having stablecoins integrated in this layer gives us, it's kind of an enabler also for a broader adoption of banks and fintechs. What we're seeing on the stablecoin issuer side is that this traditional stablecoin issuing model, business model, might be a bit changing. So for a long time, this, let's say, Tether or Circle have earned most of their revenue based on their reserve assets, on the interest that they're earning on the reserve. Now they're trying also to diversify these revenue sources and are moving up and downstream. So for example, Circle is creating a Circle payment network and trying to move upstream, but they're also creating their own blockchain called ARC and moving downstream and trying also to capture the value for different layers. Last but not least, also the blockchain layer, more specialized blockchains appearing. I mentioned Circle, but also Stripe, for example, is developing their blockchain technical. The next trend that we're seeing is also the institutionalization of stablecoins and stablecoin issuers, and this can be seen in the Circle's IPO. They IPO'd recently on the New York Stock Exchange. The round was heavily oversubscribed, and this is something that we see a lot of interest from institutional investors into investing into stablecoin issuers, which of course also gives the credibility to the whole sales process. But what we have also seen when Circle filed for the IPO, they had to reveal some of the financials. And here on the right-hand side, you can see that the revenue has been rising from 2021 here to 2024. But what has also been rising are the distribution costs. So this light blue pillar is what they're paying to companies for the distribution of their stablecoin. So the listing of the stablecoin on a crypto exchange is not cheap. And this is also something that a lot of the stablecoin issuers might struggle with and have to find the balance where they want to list their coin because the distribution costs are quite high. Coming to the actual core of this presentation, so how are banks responding? We see a lot of interest, especially in the last half a year, from banks. Now, some people are saying every bank has to have a stablecoin strategy. I think having a stablecoin strategy is a bit too much, but definitely all the banks are thinking how and what they should do with stablecoins. I can also, from my personal experience, say that this is the first time this year that my banking colleagues are starting to ask me, what can we do with stablecoins? Before it was always, I was pitching to them, but there was almost no response there. This is the first time we were actually getting some interest from different banking colleagues, from cash management, capital markets, FX. So definitely we are seeing that and feeling this every day. What are the, let's say, simple 3 strategic options that banks can do with stablecoins? So they can provide banking services to stablecoin issuers. This has been a problem for the stablecoin issuers for the last couple of years, to get a bank account, to safekeep the reserve assets in a safe bank. That's why these issuers have often also been having these accounts with some smaller banks that are more open to, let's say, crypto businesses. And I don't think that this is just a problem of stablecoin issuers. I think this is a general problem for the crypto industry also. CASPs, getting a bank account, getting banking services. This has been something that has been a problem, but I think that this is also now slowly starting to change. Banks do see the opportunity there and want to slowly open up. The next option would be to develop products and services around stablecoins. So here we're doing internally, or I think also every bank is doing internally, a lot of development on different use cases, cross-border payment use cases, settlement of tokenized assets, especially when it comes to securities, FX side, treasury management solutions are also very interesting. So this is something that banks have been developing, but I think that this will also speed up now. And the third option is also to issue a stablecoin. As said, we have seen some banks issuing a stablecoin. I don't think that any bank so far has really succeeded that, because if let's say Société Générale issue their stablecoin, it's hard to make other banks to use it. So they would not necessarily trust one particular bank with that. That's why we believe that this has to be a bit more, let's say, neutral. When it comes to fintech issued stablecoins, there are also some skepsis or some concerns. There has to be some kind of due diligence made on this stablecoin. So here the banks are still a bit wary. Coming to RBI's activities, so we have started to explore stablecoins in 2021. We issued our first internal stablecoin, which was REST token. This was basically an educational exercise for our colleagues, where we gave them the crypto wallet that they could top up by transferring fiat money to a certain account. They would see tokens in their app, and then they could go to the canteen and pay with the stablecoin in the canteen. So some call it Schnitzel coin, because you could also buy Schnitzel in our canteen. We continued the exploration with RBI coin, also in 2021. It was a pilot project. Issued a stablecoin and used it to settle tokenized fund shares. But the second experiment was even more important, because we used it to transfer money to our colleagues in Russia, and then they were transferring their money back. And we were comparing these transactions with the traditional system with the stablecoin transaction. We've learned a lot. We've learned that maybe the technical aspects are not the most challenging thing. What is more challenging back then, especially, was the regulation. Now we have MiCA and regulatory clarity, but still building a network, building an ecosystem that will accept your stablecoin, this is still the biggest challenge. We have entered into a strategic cooperation also with blue chip stablecoin rating agencies, and we're actually co-organizing a conference in November, Crypto Safety Conference. So yeah, check it out. Last but not least, we are currently also working on a project together with other European banks to explore the issues of euro stablecoin. I cannot reveal much yet, but you will definitely hear more about it at the end of this time. So in this, I would actually conclude my presentation and invite you for questions.
Thanks, Vid. Please. I think you produced a perfect cliffhanger of Vid with your announcement that you are currently in stealth mode with this project. Any questions which is not affecting Vid's NDAs?
Maybe just a very basic question, but okay. I was curious to see how you showed the split of cost structure and how much goes to Coinbase for distribution from Circle. Can you just elaborate a bit more on what goes into distribution, what services they're relying on Coinbase for?
So usually when you want to list your coin on an exchange, you would enter into some kind of agreement, and usually you would pay for the listing. So there's usually a one-time fee that can be also quite high based on our initial cost of the exchanges. But then you usually also enter into a revenue sharing agreement. So as you have seen, the revenue they have split their 60% went to Coinbase. They had a special deal on USDC. So I'm not completely sure what is now the current structure for EURC. But it's basically splitting the revenue for having the coin there and for having the stablecoin there.
Okay. So maybe just a quick follow-up, but then is there some sort of incentive then for stablecoin issuers to kind of get their own distribution channels besides relying on, because they're taking like half the profits, so it's a pretty big share that they're losing.
I think so. So I think that's why also the issuers are starting to move upstream and starting to create this kind of distribution network without being reliant on other distribution parties.
You can go to Coinbase's quarterly reports. You'll find more details in there. Of course, as a Coinbase customer, you get interest on your USDC that you use to swap between phase. So it's a very close deal. That's one. I would say extraordinary revenue shares between those two guys. But we know this, bundling of services from the telco industry, from the TV industry. The question is always make or buy. In case you don't do it yourselves and your partner and then your channel. Any other questions? Sure, back there.
I saw that Amazon is in English with their own stablecoin that online. What is the monetary people because already we know that just using a loan and borrow will lose all your funds or your money. Would that be too complicated for people? Are they complicated too much? Or really like every person now that his own stablecoin? Is this too much? My first question. And I have another question. At the moment, one of the biggest problems with adoption is that people don't know how to separate the perfect side of stablecoin and blockchain and how fast it is with the other part of the blockchain, with the trading and mint coin and shelling. People don't know how to separate these two things. When they go and take money out of the bank and they go to casino, they lose money, they don't go back to the bank to say, I lost my money. But in crypto, they take their stablecoins, they gamble, they lose their money, and they go and play with Bybit, with Binance, or whenever they are trading. Are you planning as a bank to do any campaign to show the world that these two things are separated, but that they do their own decision in conquering the blockchain, because they are taking 10 years of playing?
Very short question, please.
Yeah. First, on the Amazon example, I think it always depends, are you showing the stablecoins to your customers or not? Because if they are, I wouldn't assume that Amazon will necessarily list these coins on different exchanges, but maybe they will only use this coin for their internal purposes. They are a global business, so even this would make sense for them. The second question, I think a lot of education is needed, and we are doing this internally, but externally not yet. So I think this is definitely needed for the ecosystem to mature.
That's a good opportunity for me to talk 30 seconds about blockchain associations. So industry associations such as DLT Austria, and the team here in Austria, or Blockchain Bundesverband, where I'm the managing director in Germany. So we get an incredible amount of emails with very sad stories of people who were scammed basically. So losing your keys is not the only problem, not in that industry. It's about people don't know enough. So I think the education part, yes, it's highly important. It needs to be done, and support your local blockchain organizations, associations to come up with those campaigns. We are sure that the banks will also support it if there's a good format or a good service out there. But right now it's a bit still Wild West, not in terms of regulation, but in terms of customer awareness. And clearly, services promising 15+% are typically nothing to be overly trustworthy. So tell your grandmas and granddads, be careful. Thanks a lot, Vid. You're still around this afternoon?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, perfectly. And of course, if Vid says we send money to our colleagues in Russia, they have a big business there. They have to do lots of sanction handling. So it's you mean the official channels to deal with Russia. Okay, thanks a lot, Vid.
Thank you.
Next on stage.